Hello everyone. Our topic for today is K-means clustering and it comes under unsupervised learning. Earlier we had seen some examples of supervised learning like linear regression or logistic regression. The main difference between supervised and unsupervised learning is that in supervised learning we had the input or the output labels, but in unsupervised learning we do not have the output label. We are just given the input features, and based on that we need to make some inference out of the data. So in in unsupervised learning we will be studying the algorithm of K-means clustering. So first let us understand what clustering is by the help of an example. So you might be knowing how heavenly bodies are classified. So we define stars as uh, balls of gases which are burning, and they are usually large in size. And then we define planets as heavenly bodies which revolve around stars and which are small in size relative to stars. And then we have natural satellites like our moon, which again revolve around these planets and also revolve around the stars. So those are called the natural satellites. In similar way we have asteroids, and if we combine all of these we get our solar system, and many such solar systems combine to form a galaxy. So we have defined some measures and some factors on what planets are, what stars are, what asteroids are, and on those we have given them some labels. So in a similar way we will do in clustering. We have some input data, we don't know what those are, but based on some similar features we will have to cluster each of them, and maybe also give some output label to each of those, some meaningful output label to each of those. So one thing which had happened in 2006 was that Pluto was originally a planet, but in 2006 it was renamed as a dwarf planet, and dwarf planet were given some more features, and since Pluto fitted in dwarf planet category, so it was removed as a planet. So you can see how having different set of features for a class helps in classifying. So in a similar way we will be given some data set and we have to separate them or group them based on similar features. So when we were classifying these heavenly bodies, we based our classification on maybe the size or what they revolve around, or if they are burning or not, and similar kinds of those. But we will see how K-means algorithm works. So suppose this is a data set and we are set to apply clustering algorithm. So one way of clustering could be like this. This is one cluster, this is one cluster, this is one, and this is one. Suppose one person says it like this, and then some other person comes and clusters it in some other way. Suppose he thinks that this entire is one cluster, these two is separate and these two is separate. Then that is one more way of clustering those. And one more way could be let's suppose in this way, this is one, all these one, and this is the cluster 3. So we can see if we are given a data set, then we can form many clusters, and all of these clusters I showed you were mostly 3 clusters, but we can also group them in groups of two, like this would be one and this would be one, or also in groups, in more groups, like this would be one, this here, this would be form one separate cluster, this one and this one. So you can form as many clusters as we want, and similarly include those points in those clusters. So here we didn't have any actual parameter of forming clusters or also defining the number of clusters. So in k-means algorithm, we have definite algorithm and steps by which we define the clusters. So let us look at the algorithm. First, we take initial value of the number of clusters. In the previous dataset, we had seen that here I had taken 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clusters. In a similar way, those are the number of clusters. So we take the initial value of number of clusters and we start with a value of 2, because starting with a value of 1 makes no sense. And then we set the centroid to the initial position. Centroid is actually the center of gravity of all the points in that cluster. For initial, we set it to some random place, and then we make the centroid stabilized. So we'll go through all of these steps. We'll take a data set and see how we follow these steps. We increase the number of clusters. So in the first step, suppose we had taken the number of clusters to be 2, then we change it to 3, and then again go to step 2, like we make the centroid to initial position and so on, and then we change it to 4 and so on. And as we keep on repeating our steps, we plot a graph of cost versus of the cost versus the number of clusters, and we'll look for the elbow. We'll see with the graph what this elbow means and also what this cost function is exactly. Okay, for the first step, we take the initial number of clusters to be 2. So suppose we think that our data set will be represented by only 2 clusters, then we will take the number of clusters to be 2. Suppose if the data set is represented by something like this, then the number of clusters would be 2. Then after that, we set centroid to the initial position. Centroid is the center of gravity of all the points in that cluster. So initially we set it to some random position. So this is the first centroid here, and this is the second centroid. After that, we make the centroid stabilized. So this has many steps and we'll go through all of these. Till now we had seen that we had initially placed our centroid at some random position. So for the first step, assign each point to the nearest cluster. For each of these points we have to assign to the nearest cluster. So how do we do that? We first join these 2 points and then draw perpendicular from here. So my drawings are not drawn to scale. This is just to give you an idea, and then we can cluster it. Suppose these things on the right goes to this cluster, and those on the left of this line goes to the blue one. Okay, so this step is complete. Next, we make the centroid the center of gravity of the cluster. So we move these clusters so that it becomes the center of gravity of all of these clusters. Let's say the center of gravity is somewhere around here, and the center of gravity for the red one is here. So it has moved from here to here. Oh, and center of gravity is actually the point where the sum of moments of all the points in this cluster would be equal to 0. So actually, while implementing it practical, you don't need to find out the center of gravity. we will have the standard libraries, and all of these will be taken care of. So after we have moved a centroid to the center of gravity, this step is complete. Next, we reassign each point to the nearest cluster. So in a similar way, we will then reassign all of these data points to the nearest cluster. So once again we will draw our line. So we join these two. Suppose this time the perpendicular line is somewhat like this. Okay, first let me erase some things. All of these are not needed now. So now our perpendicular line is this, and based on this line we will form a new clusters. All of these would now belong to the blue one, and these would go to the red one. So we have reassigned each point to the nearest cluster. So after stabilizing means we have to, since we have reassigned each of these points to the nearest cluster, we go back to this step once again and then make the centroid the center of gravity. Once again we will make this centroid the center of gravity of the cluster. Maybe this red cross moves from here to here, and this blue one moves from here to here. Just erase this one. Okay, so these are the new position of the centroid, and then once again we reassign each point to the nearest cluster, and in a similar way we keep on repeating these until we stabilize the cluster. That means that the data sets in each cluster is not changing. So after we have done that, we calculate the sum of squared errors, and the formula for that is the distance between each point. Okay, so this is the formula: distance xi minus c1 square. So distance between this is the points in the cluster, and this is the centroid. And this thing is the centroid, so you have to find the distance between each point and the centroid. So we take this point, find the distance between them, find the distance between these two, square it, then take the distance between these two, square it, and in similar way we take the distance between all of these points, square it, and then add it. So this gives us the sum of squared errors for this one cluster. And similarly we have to do this for this cluster also, and we have to add all of those, and after adding all of those we get the sum of squared errors. Next we increase the number of clusters to 3. So in our previous example we had just 2 clusters, now we will have 3 clusters. So after taking the number of clusters to be 3, we now have to initialize them to random positions. Suppose the red cluster centroid is here, take one more, the blue one is here, and the purple one is here, and then in a similar way we have to follow all those steps, that we need to assign each of these points to their clusters. So suppose all of these gets assigned to the red one, and all of these are not accurate, just to give you an idea. These are assigned to the blue one, and these are assigned to the purple one. And so after that what we do is shift these centroids to the center of gravity of these clusters. In a similar way you keep on repeating all those steps which we had seen previously, and as we keep on repeating those steps, we plot a graph of the sum of squared errors versus the number of clusters. So here is the number of clusters, and here this is the SSE. and we get a graph like this. And using this graph we have to find the elbow. So elbow, you can understand what elbow is, which is in our hand. So this graph looks like a elbow graph, so that's why it is known as an elbow graph. And here the elbow we can find out is here, since this looks as an elbow of a hand. And if we find out what is the value here, so this corresponds to, this is 1, this is 2, and this is 3. So this corresponds to 3, and this will give us the optimum number of clusters we need for a data set. And since we have found out the optimal numbers of data clusters, then we will then using those number of clusters we will cluster our data sets. So we will follow all those steps, like first randomly initializing the centroids, then assigning each data set to this centroid, then moving the centroid to the center of gravity, and so on. So after all those steps are done and this centroid is stabilized, we get our clustered data set. Now what we do is predict the output. So how do we do that? So we had seen that we get our optimal clustering at 3. So we will have 3 clusters, and suppose our cluster is formed something like this. This is the first cluster, this one is the second cluster, and this one is the third cluster. So what we will do when we get a new data set, suppose we get a new data set somewhere here, then we can predict that this data set belongs to this cluster, or we get it somewhere here, then we can predict that that data set belongs to this group. In a similar way, when we are given a new input feature, we can predict to which group it belongs, so we can predict the output. So you have seen the k-means clustering algorithm, and you might have seen some some algorithms like finding out the center of gravity, and you have seen all those steps, and you might be confused a bit, but those are not to worry about. While we do the code, we have standard libraries to help us, so you need not worry about all the details. Just having an understanding of how the algorithm works is good. So with this, I hope you have understood k-means algorithm. Thank you.